So the Israelites escape from Egypt, as promised, with a load of Egyptian plunder. God decides not to take them the shortest route to Canaan, along the coast, because he thinks that facing the Philistines would be too much for their faith at this time. So they start off on a longer route, through the desert, and face their first obstacle, the Red Sea, or Sea of Reeds as many people think it should be translated. God sorts this out, and then they wander for 3 days without finding water, at which point they complain. Moses cries out to God and they get water. Then they have no food, so again they complain. Moses cries out to God and they get food. Now, this kind of sets a trend for what is to come, as throughout the wilderness wanderings, we'll see that the Israelites become somewhat notorious for complaining.
In this time of walking through the desert to get to Sinai, we already begin to see the conditional nature of the relationship that God will have with his people, as we see just after the sea crossing, God saying to his people,
"If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give heed to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases that I brought upon the Egyptians."
When the Israelites get to Sinai, the conditional nature of God's promises becomes even more explicit, as God says to Moses,
"Tell the Israelites, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation."
Now, admittedly, this is a more specific promise than those made to Abraham, but there, God did promise to be God to Abraham and his descendants. He also promised that they would be a great nation.
God then gives the people, via Moses, a large set of commands which they are to follow, including, most famously, the 10 Commandments. However, there are lots of others incorporating all aspects of life, for example, food, disease, sexual relations, justice, looking after the poor and needy, the sacrificial system, land rights, and family matters. We find these commands scattered throughout Exodus and Numbers. Leviticus consists entirely of these, and in Moses' final speech, as recorded in Deuteronomy, we'll find another summary, an expansion of various rules and the consequences for both obeying and disobeying them.
What do we learn from this?